covered in blood. My high school freshman daughter, Becky, was supposed to go with my husband Ryan to his family's home. Instead, she returned home bleeding from her forehead. I screamed in shock, quickly treating her wounds before calling Ryan. When he answered, I couldn't help but yell, "Ryan, where are you? Didn't you say you were on a business trip?" His unexpected reply stunned me. 5 days earlier, I had seen him off with Becky heading to his family's home. Now, there she stood, seriously injured. Confused and worried, Vicki, a neighbor, told me a shocking truth. My name is Cathy Hansen, a 40-year-old part-time housewife. Ryan, also 40, is a salesman who visits various schools to sell teaching materials. He always talks about the importance of trust, maintaining a diligent and proper demeanor. Becky, once a clean and dependent child, had recently become responsible, often cooking dinner while waiting for me to return from my part-time job. Life was peaceful with my husband and daughter until 5 years ago when my mother became bedridden due to an internal illness. Since then, I've juggled caregiving and my job, only managing to visit Ryan's family during Christmas holidays. During these visits, Ryan would joke about not overdoing it. He was lucky to have an understanding wife. But as time passed, his trips to his family home became more frequent, especially after his mother's sudden accident 3 years ago. His father, deeply depressed, needed cheering up, so Ryan would take him out for meals and trips, increasing the expenses from $300 to $500 each time. I couldn't question the money as I hadn't visited myself in years. One day, Ryan mentioned needing $1,000 for his next trip home. I doubted the necessity of such a large sum, but convinced myself it was important to show appreciation to his father. To cover the cost, I temporarily withdrew money from the savings account I had set aside for Becky's school fees. I decided to skip the beauty salon for a while and focus on returning the money to Becky's account gradually. Becky's exams ended, and things settled down. My father-in-law suggested a seafood meal as a reward for Becky and himself. Really? Yay! Becky's beaming smile warmed my heart as I stroked her head and thanked her for always being patient and helpful with my mother. The next morning, as they prepared to leave for the trip, Becky said, "I'll buy some souvenirs and come back." We all smiled and waved goodbye, unaware of what lay ahead. 5 days after Ryan and Becky left, around noon, I was in the kitchen preparing lunch when I heard the front door rattle open. "Who is it?" I called out, but no one answered. I opened the door and found Becky standing there, bleeding from her forehead. What on earth happened? I screamed almost in a shriek, desperately looking for Ryan, but he was nowhere to be found. Trembling, I ushered Becky inside and immediately called Ryan. "Ryan, where are you?" He responded curtly, "I'm at work. Didn't I tell you?" I left for a business trip the day after taking Becky to my parents' home. I was confused, having heard nothing about this work. More importantly, Becky had come home seriously injured. Ryan quickly hung up after saying, "She probably just fell. Don't take it too seriously. Girls her age tend to exaggerate." I couldn't possibly accept such a nonsensical story. While attending to Becky, I asked her why she was injured and if Dad had left for work. Vicki, her face pale, hesitated before she whispered, "Dad." He pushed me. I gently rubbed Becky's back as I listened to her story unfold. An unbelievable truth was exposed. Ryan had been keeping secrets from us, and he injured Becky when she discovered them. Not only that, but he had also threatened her, saying, "If you tell anyone about this, next time it won't just be an injury." Vicki managed to escape from my in-laws' house after Ryan hesitated and my father-in-law returned home. Fortunately, she had some money with her and was able to take the bus back home. How anxious she must have been, hiding her injury all the way here. I vowed never to forgive anyone who hurts my sweet Becky. I was angry not only at Ryan for abusing Becky but also at the secrets he had kept. After hearing everything from Becky, I was about to call my father-in-law, but I was shocked to see numerous missed calls from him on my phone. "Oh, I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't notice the phone while I was cooking." "No, it's fine," he replied. More importantly, I heard Becky had to rush back for some urgent matter. "Did she arrive safely at your place?" His words left me speechless. My husband Ryan had fabricated such a lie to cover up the fact that our daughter, whom he had injured, had fled back to our home. I then spilled everything to my father-in-law, who was oblivious to it all. "Becky is fine," I told my father-in-law. "I'm taking her to the hospital, but I can't forgive Ryan. Can you keep him at your house a bit longer? I want to give him a piece of my mind." My father-in-law immediately agreed, promising his cooperation. He said he would cunningly persuade Ryan to stay at their home for a while longer. In the meantime, I ran around making preparations for the confrontation with my husband. 5 days later, after completing the investigation into Ryan's secrets, I was on my way to my in-laws' house. Just as I was about to ring the doorbell, I saw Becky running up to me, out of breath. "Mom, wait for me," she said. "Didn't I tell you to wait at home?" I replied. "I can't just sit around. I have to confront him about what he did to me." I had planned to go into my in-laws' house alone, not wanting Becky to witness the argument between my husband and me, but it seemed Becky didn't want to just stay put. "I think I have a right to speak up too," she said, unyielding. Reluctantly, I agreed. I accepted her anger and decided to fight this together. We were greeted by my father-in-law, who was already aware of the plan. Entering the living room, we found Ryan lounging in his pajamas and watching TV, as if nothing had happened. "Oh, weren't you supposed to be on a business trip?" I asked sternly. Ryan jumped up, startled by my sudden voice. He started making lame excuses about how he was supposed to go but then didn't need to. "Well, that doesn't matter now," I said. "What I want to know about is Vicky's injury." "Clumsy her," Ryan replied. "Seems like she fell down the stairs and hit her forehead." I was about to yell at my husband for feigning ignorance when my father-in-law spoke first. "Enough. I know that Becky's injury is your fault," he said sternly. Becky chimed in. "Yeah, that's right." I glared at Ryan as he started to look nervous. Then suddenly, he seemed to have an idea and argued back. "As if you have the right to talk. You never visited my parents, but I was the one taking care of them." "Yeah, ever since you brought me here, you've been lounging around at home," I retorted, feeling the weight of frustration. "Shut up. This is just a one-time thing," Ryan snapped back. "Usually, I'm the one working hard." Ignoring Ryan's mumbling, I pulled out my father-in-law's account of household expenses that I had previously obtained. It detailed not only the money in and out but also how Ryan spent his time at his parents' house. "Let me tell you what's written here," I began, pointing to the document. June 10th. Gave Ryan $200 for transportation. He lazed around all day as usual, went out at night, and returned in the morning. Food expenses increased because of Ryan's presence. Calmly, I read out the details. According to this, every time Ryan visited, he lied about me not giving him transportation money and received cash from his father. Taking advantage of my absence, Ryan had painted me as a stingy, evil wife to gain sympathy from his father. How can you not be ashamed of mooching off your parents at your age and getting all sorts of help too? I questioned. Cornered by our accusations, Ryan fell silent, at a loss for words. "What have you been using all that money for, I wonder?" I continued, ignoring Ryan's mumbling. "Well, no need to say anything. You're probably just thinking of another pathetic lie." Ignoring Ryan's mumbling, I presented a photo in front of him. "You needed so much money because you were splurging at places like this, right? How did you know about this place?" Ryan's face drained of color as he asked, clearly shaken that I knew. The secret Becky discovered while Ryan was visiting his parents was unsettling. She had thought he was diligently caring for his father, but he was actually sneaking out at night and coming home in the early hours of the morning. Suspicious. Becky secretly investigated by installing a tracking app on his phone. Each time he left, she checked his whereabouts on the computer, finding him consistently at the same place. To her shock, she discovered it was a gentleman's club. Just before Ryan came home, she was about to call me when she found him researching the location on the computer. In a fit of rage, Ryan pushed her, causing her to hit her head on a dresser, which led to the injury and the story unfolding as you know it. After hearing Becky's story, I left my mother in professional care for a few days and went to the club to gather evidence of Ryan's reckless spending. There, I saw my husband cheerfully entering the club, using money that was even temporarily taken from Becky's school fund. Ryan, cornered by the evidence, weakly muttered, "Isn't this normal for men?" Looking up at his father for support. Using your child's school money for personal satisfaction is inexcusable for any man, I retorted. I'm tired from work. Is it okay to have a little fun? Vicki sighed, exasperated with Ryan's stubbornness. Mom, do you know what kind of place that is? Vicki asked, laying out several printed pages from the club's website. As we looked through them with my father-in-law, we saw that the girls at the club wore school uniforms. They were all adults, but it was a gentleman's club where they cosplayed in revealing school uniforms. Seeing this, I felt a surge of anger. Exposing my daughter to such a world was abhorrent. So, Dad, you like this sort of thing? Vicki said with a shudder, handing the papers to Ryan. Gross. Ryan tried to downplay it. You don't have to say it like that. If the clients at the schools found out about your preference for girls in uniforms, it could be a problem, right? I said with an icy stare. Ryan turned pale. I quickly grabbed Ryan's schedule book, which he had left in his bag. Going through it, I found his appointment logs with schools. Now I know all the schools you've been visiting, I said. Maybe I shouldn't inform your clients about your wonderful hobby. Ryan started trembling. Realizing he couldn't escape, he knelt down and apologized profusely. But years of frequenting those clubs, wasting money, and injuring our daughter were unforgivable. Who would believe a liar like you? I thought. Dad, I've consulted with a lawyer, Becky said, and I'm ready to proceed with a divorce. I'll make sure you pay back all the money you squandered on your indulgences, plus compensation. This was the end for us. Ryan tried to claim innocence, but Becky dodged him with a simple, "You're gross." Eventually, he broke down crying as we glared at him coldly. Soon after, the divorce was finalized, and I demanded Ryan repay the $115,000 he had squandered and an additional $30,000 in compensation for his club visits leaked to his company. Ryan was fired, and even his father cut ties with him. Now, he lives alone in a rundown house, barely scraping by with day-to-day jobs, always in fear of debt collectors. Meanwhile, after the divorce, I've found more time for myself. With Becky's help, my mother's health has improved significantly, and she no longer needs constant care. Now, the three of us women are enjoying a happy, harmonious life.